And so, I mean, even though you are the face of stop hiring humans, you do.
We love hiring humans. Yeah. Yeah. We have lots of humans. Not that many. Actually. We have like 40 humans.
Okay.
We hire a lot, so we have been hiring a lot always. We never stopped hiring humans.
Yeah. That was Jaspar Carmichael-Jack, co-founder of Artisan, which builds AI-powered sales agents that automate outbound prospecting and customer engagement. Jaspar and I talk about the reality behind Artisan's "Stop Hiring Humans" narrative, and why, despite that messaging, building the right team is still one of the most important things he's had to navigate as a young founder. We get into how roles are changing and how to think about humans versus automation when you're trying to scale something quickly, and hiring mistakes that could have stopped Artisan's hypergrowth if they hadn't course-corrected. I'm your host, Isabelle Johannessen, and this is Build Mode. And this season is all about building your team. So before we dive into this conversation, I'd like to remind everyone that applications for the Startup Battlefield 2026 are now open. So if you're building an early-stage company or have an MVP, apply for the program at techcrunch.com/apply. And if you want to take these conversations into the real world, then be sure to join us for TechCrunch Disrupt, happening October 13 to 15 in San Francisco. Tickets are on sale now at techcrunch.com/events. And be sure to use code BuildMode15 for 15% off all ticket types. We can't wait to see you there. Can you start by introducing yourself and what Artisan does?
Yeah, so I'm Jaspar. I'm the CEO of Artisan. We started about 2 years ago. We make AI employees, with the first one being Ava, our AI BDR. She automates the entire outbound demand generation cycle. So finding companies' leads, outreaching them, getting responses for them, and taking over their outbound sales function. We've raised just over $35 million to date. We did Y Combinator a couple of years ago now, and we're gearing up to release Ava 2.0 in a few months. So been a lot of team building on the journey over the past 2 years.
I remember I first met you at your YC demo day, actually, and I think you had pretty much just launched the company. Because I remember I reached out to you on LinkedIn a few maybe weeks or months later, and I was like, yo, you should apply to start a Battlefield.
Yeah, I remember that.
And then you responded and you were like, actually, I think we might sponsor TechCrunch Disrupt this year. And I was like, mic drop. Okay. Honestly, I talk to so many startups every year that, are interested in applying, whatever, and none have turned that quickly from like being early stage, we want the exposure, to like, no, we're going to sponsor.
Yeah, nice.
Tell me, what happened? How did that exponential growth happen?
Yeah, I think very early on, we realized that we had something that people wanted. Like we had this insane market pull from day one. Even before we did YC, we were posting things on Reddit and posting things on a bunch of different social channels and getting like a lot of interaction, a lot of pull. Some of it a bit rage baity, but nonetheless, we had a wait list that was building up. So we kind of saw from day one that we need to execute well, and then we'll be a massive company. And we started leaning into that market pull.
Wow. And I mean, it happened really quickly, which is what I think most founders can only hope for. But it's happened for you, and that's really outstanding. And I've heard a rumor.
Okay, what is it?
That you came up with the idea for Artisan on a beach in Tulum. I have to tell you that I just got back from a beach in Mexico, and I did not have any, game-changing epiphanies about companies I want to start. So I'm curious what happened.
Yeah, this is kind of funny. So I went to, this sounds so cringe, but I went to Mexico for New Year's, like I think 3 years ago. And I, after New Year's, went to Tulum, to this apartment in the jungle. I was like, okay, I'm going to go there for 3 weeks. I'm going to lock in. I'm going to put my phone in a cupboard. I'm not going to use it. I'm going to only do things that could lead to some future company or future outcome. And during those 3 weeks, I was in the apartment. I actually didn't go to the beach that whole trip, sadly. But that's where I came up with the idea for Artisan, in that apartment in the Tulum jungle.
Well, I would be remiss if I didn't ask you about your Stop Hiring Humans campaign. Yeah.
No, that makes sense.
Yeah. So, I mean, this was a very provocative, controversial campaign. I'm sure you've been asked about it, and you're probably sick of being asked about it.
No, I'm happy to.
First of all, is the campaign working? Is it worth the backlash that you're getting?
Yeah, I mean, it's the reason that people know who we are. Like, if we didn't do that marketing campaign, it would have been a much slower brand awareness trajectory, and it's given us this platform where we can hire from this platform. We can reach out to enterprise customers, and they know who we are. We have really strong brand awareness and category leadership in the AI BDR, AI SDR space. So definitely worth it, despite the backlash and the death threats.
I mean, I'm personally a huge fan of this campaign. I think it's brilliant and one of the best marketing campaigns we've seen in a long time. I personally really like the one that you guys had outside of Balboa Cafe.
Oh, yeah?
For those listening who are from San Francisco, Balboa Cafe is this like cool hot bar that everyone likes to go to. I think it's actually partially owned by Governor Gavin Newsom.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
Fun fact. Anyways, and there was a artisan billboard outside that said like, Ava will show up to work on Monday.
Yeah. I was like, Ava won't miss work after a late night Balboa. I was like, yeah.
But I'm wondering, has that impacted your ability to hiring or, I mean, has a certain type of person come knocking on your door to work for you?
I think probably some people wouldn't apply because of the marketing. Anyone who's like scared of anything controversial would probably immediately look at another company. But we obviously don't know because they're not going to come and tell us, hey, I'm not going to apply to you because of your billboards. They're just like not going to apply. But we get an insane amount of inbound traffic of people who want to work with us, and across every single role and every single, we've had hundreds of thousands of applications since we started the company.
And so, I mean, even though you are the face of stop hiring humans, you do.
We love hiring humans. Yeah. We have lots of humans. Not that many actually. We have like 40 humans.
Okay.
We hire a lot, so we have been hiring a lot always. We never stopped hiring humans.
Yeah. And so how do you supplement using AI internally and hiring humans? So what sort of roles do you have versus what do you use AI for?
So as you would expect, we don't have any BDRs. We don't have anyone doing outbound sales. That would be a bit ironic if we did. We do have every other role because we don't have any form of automation for it. I mean, we still use AI. Like we use Claude Code for our engineering team. We use Gamma in the design team. We use a bunch of different tools and different products to make everyone more productive, which I think has meant that we've needed less people overall, but we have people in almost every function.
But I've heard that in the beginning days of Artisan, you were struggling in the first few weeks and it almost went under because of some hiring mistakes. Talk me through that.
I've made a lot of hiring mistakes. Like a lot in every single role. Yeah, I feel like you learn new things about hiring every time you make a hire and it fails. I think we've probably hired over 100 people to have the 40 people that we have now, just from either having to fire a lot of people or from people leaving and going to other companies. Like you learn a lot every time you hire someone that doesn't work out. You're like, okay, I need to readjust in this method. But
well, let's talk about some of those learnings, because I think there's a lot of really interesting kind of probably lessons that other founders would love to hear from this. So what are some of the sort of key mistakes you learned early on?
Yeah, one can be logo shopping. Like if you're like, oh, they worked at Google, they must be good. Or, oh, they went to Harvard or Stanford or MIT, they must be good. And then not actually take into account that they didn't seem that great in the trial task or in the interview process. Done that a few times, never really works out. I think you can kind of sense someone's raw intelligence when you speak to them. You've got to index on that, and index on the work that they've done and the work that you perceive they're going to be able to do, not taking into account just the logos that they have on their CV.
Yeah, but it's interesting you say that, because I mean, I know you're pretty young. I'm fairly young myself, but like when you're hiring someone who's fresh out of college, it's really difficult when they don't have any experience. I mean, how do you have, is the team generally younger?
They're a bit younger, but I don't think anyone that I've hired fresh out of college has not worked out. Because I think when someone's fresh out of college, you're really judging them purely based on how they speak to you and how they communicate and what they do in a trial task, which kind of makes it easier because you don't have your judgment clouded. You're not looking at, oh, they worked at Netflix the past 2 years, so they must be amazing. So whenever I've hired someone either in college or fresh out of college, I think it's always worked out, unless I'm forgetting the time that it didn't work out.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And I mean, what other mistakes have you made? I mean, I think so, obviously logo shopping, but there must be others.
Okay, so logo shopping was a huge mistake. Hiring people who are either too senior or not senior enough. It's like this impossible Goldilocks zone where you don't want someone who's 3 stages ahead of where you're at right now, because inevitably they're not going to be able to deal with how small your company is. And if you hire a VP of sales from a huge company when you have 2 salespeople, they're going to say like, where's my product marketing team? Where are the assets? Where are all these different things that you won't have? But again, you don't want someone too junior. You don't want to hire an AE and make them your head of sales. If you've got 10 AEs, like it's just unlikely to work out. Another one is probably when you move too quickly in the hiring process because you get really excited about someone and you give them a full-time offer immediately. Maybe it's remote, you haven't met them in person, you haven't actually worked with them, and you go full steam into it, and you end up realizing a few weeks in, oh shit, they're actually not a great fit for this role. And then it's really awkward to fire someone after you just hired them 3 weeks ago. So I would avoid that at all costs. And then in the hiring process, if you don't communicate your expectations well, you end up with people who have completely misaligned expectations. Like if you don't tell people that they need to work really hard in the role and that it's going to be abnormal hours and they'll be work on weekends sometimes, and they come in and they start and then they find that out once they're already in the role, they're going to be very disgruntled and they're going to leave and they're going to tell everyone about how terrible of a company you are. We had that happen once.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I can also imagine someone who may not be used to startup culture.
Yeah. So this person came from a very big company.
Yeah.
We didn't communicate in the hiring process because I guess we just thought that people would assume it. And then they started and it did not work out.
I get why you think people would assume it. I mean, you guys are like the poster child for AI startups.
Yeah.
Like, hello, obviously we're going to be doing
Now we
crazy stuff.
communicate a lot. Now we make sure that, we are very transparent with expectations of the role.
But so talk me through what it feels like to fire someone. I mean, that must not be an easy
It's
decision.
my least favorite thing in the world. I hate firing people. It's like it's like breaking up with someone. It's like being in a relationship and breaking up with them, but also you're taking away their income. It's like a horrible, it's the worst.
Yeah.
And then you know that like a lot of the people that you fire ultimately are very skilled people, and it's going to be easy for them to get another role, but it still is never ever easy. So now we do everything we can to not have to fire people by only hiring people who we think are actually going to be really strong in the role.
Right.
Least favorite thing.
Great strategy. Yes.
Yeah.
But so how do you actually go out deciding that someone is really just not a fit? Because I think early on, I mean, you want to try to make it work. I mean, especially when you're in the very early stages of forming a company, right?
Yeah.
Maybe they'll grow into it as we grow. Some of the processes aren't even built out yet.
Yeah. Early on, we were way too slow. So we would sit on a decision for weeks or months and not really do anything and try and help them a bit, but not really, and just float around. And then it never works out when you do that. You kind of have to be quick with your decision, either to put them on a pip and to help them improve, or to let them go somewhere where they probably are going to have a better time. You can tell when someone's not working out in a role, and usually they know as well. They're never really surprised that they are fired, because they usually, and if they are surprised, then you've made a mistake because you haven't been good with your. We've had that early on where people are surprised that they're fired, and no one should ever be surprised that they're getting fired, because they should have had feedback and you should have told them specifically what they're doing that's not working out. And sometimes it's just not a good fit, in which case maybe they're going to be surprised, but you should still be communicating throughout the process.
I guess my question for you would be, where did you learn this, right? Like,
Yeah.
I know you've had a couple companies before, but do you have sort of like a mentor, someone who guides you through these processes? Because they're not necessarily obvious, right? You've got to learn it somewhere.
I mean, ChatGPT is really helpful. That's one thing that's really helpful. Otherwise, just like I have a lot of founders that I know. Whenever I am unsure about something, I'll just ask a friend and say, like, what would you do in this situation? How do I approach this? How do we do this? We did by Combinator. They're pretty helpful. Speak to my group partner. He's helped with a lot of different things. But yeah, once you're in the SF ecosystem, it's really easy to find people to help you for anything.
Yeah. I mean, the SF ecosystem is there's a reason people come from all over the world to be here, including yourself.
Yeah.
You don't have a team in London?
We actually do have a few people in London.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
No office, but some people.
Yeah. Are you planning on hiring globally, or are you sticking?
We have a lot of people globally. Yeah. We have like UK, Canada, Brazil, India, some in Eastern Europe. Yeah. We have a pretty global team, mostly because when we've found someone who's really good, we don't want to say no to them just because they're not in New York or San Francisco. And talent is much easier to retain globally. Like if you're hiring people in SF in New York, especially if you're a hot company, your team are constantly going to get offers for other roles. Every day they're going to have recruiters reaching out to them, offering them more than you're paying them. So they have to really be invested. Otherwise, they're immediately going to find another role.
Yeah, I mean, that was one of the mistakes you mentioned earlier of people leaving for other jobs. How often does that really happen? And what do you do in that situation? I mean, does it just become like a money game at the end of it?
Yeah, I think it's when someone wants to leave, it's usually best to just let them leave, like, and not to try and up their salary and fight for them, because realistically, they're not going to be as invested or as engaged. Like if they don't want to be at the company, it's not worth trying to fight to keep them there most of the time. I'd say a lot of the time it's just a natural evolution. Like when someone's worked somewhere for like a year and a half, 2 years, they start getting hot feet and they want to, and they want to look for something new, especially people early in their career. Like it makes sense. You want to be exposed to different things, and you can get a huge pay jump by moving to another company, and you can learn new things and have new experiences, and you've already vested your equity. So you have upside potential, even if you're not at the company. I think it's just an inevitable, painful part of running a company.
But so let's go back to the very, very first days of Artisan. So you have a co-founder.
Yes.
You
are. There's a story there. I don't know if you know the story.
I don't know the story. So
okay.
How did you and your co-founder meet?
Well, I had another co-founder to begin with.
Okay.
Yeah, so I had an original co-founder who I met through a LinkedIn job listing, who I started the company with, I think in October of 2022, who we did Y Combinator with. And then my current co-founder joined in November, so the month after we started. And during Y Combinator, she was there the whole time. And then things actually didn't work out with my original co-founder, and my current co-founder became co-founder at the end of the YC batch.
Ah.
Yeah.
Are you interested in digging into why it didn't work out with your co-founder?
I can within legal limits, yeah. So I think it's hiring or finding a co-founder is one of the most difficult things because you need someone who's really good, but when you're early on in your career and when you don't have any track record, it's going to be very difficult to get someone very good. So you kind of are in this catch-22 where you have a group of people available to you and you likely want someone who doesn't want to work with you, and you have to deal with that back and forth. When I found my original co-founder, we started working together within like a week of meeting on the company. So there was no deep
No courting?
no courting, no. It was just like straight didn't even meet in person actually. No, we just went straight into it. And I think we realized as time went on that maybe it wasn't the best fit and that it wasn't going to work out. And I don't know if I would change anything because it did ultimately work out pretty well. But yeah, you need to be very thorough with who you're working with and make sure that you mesh with them and make sure that it's going to be a successful partnership.
Yeah, I mean, I think a co-founder relationship is pretty much the most important relationship in one's life, where you go just so many challenges together and have to really, persevere through a lot. And yet so many people find their co-founder, like even you said, I've heard this before, online or just met quickly at a party or whatever. And then we have other founders who, are married to their co-founder. It's their sibling.
Yeah. I could not start a company with any of my siblings on my own.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, and so then after you met your co-founder, what was your very, very first hire?
So, after I met my co-founder, I think one of the first hires was my current co-founder. That's kind of funny. But the first hire was a front-end engineer. Yeah.
Usually a good place to start.
Within like 2 days, yeah. I didn't even know that there was a difference between front-end and back-end engineering when we started. So I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't realize that there was like front-end, back-end, and AI. There was 3 different components you had to build together. So we were really fighting for our lives in the early days.
But YC, I mean, is very helpful with all of these things, right? It's that imagine you come in with a vague idea, or what do you have to get into YC?
We had the idea. We had some. So I had an agency before doing branding, product design, like a bunch of different things. So we had it was actually extremely ugly looking back, but we had what I thought was a really cool UI of what Ava was going to be. It's horrible. It was like a purple. It looked like, I don't even know how it's like a children's toy. So we had that, and I'm so surprised we actually got in with that because it was not good. But we got in before launching anything, and then we launched at the beginning of the YC batch.
Okay.
And a horrible MVP.
But then by the end of YC, when I met you, you had already a couple people on your team?
Yeah, we did. We actually were the only people really who hired during YC, which I don't know if it was a good, I think we needed to because we just didn't have the ability. Like I was non-technical and we didn't have the ability on the team to actually build the product. So we had to hire people who could. So we hired a few engineers. For some reason, we hired QA engineers. I didn't have any involvement in that. I didn't even know. I just was like, okay, yeah, sure. And then I was like, why do you have QA engineers? Like, you don't even have a live product. So this is the dumbest thing ever. And now we don't have any QA engineers now. So don't hire stupid roles that you don't need. But yeah, we were hiring throughout the YC batch. We hired across every function. We hired like a chief of staff, hired engineers, designers, a bunch of things. Yeah.
And I mean, so YC is obviously one of the best accelerators in the world.
Yeah.
But aside from them specifically, would you recommend to first-time founders to participate in accelerator programs? Like, what value did that have for you?
Yeah, definitely. I think it depends. Like, if it's a random accelerator, probably not. Like, I don't think it's going to help if you do some niche local accelerator in Utah. But if it's like a flagship brand like YC, even like Techstars or something, or like A16Z Speedrun or something like that, it is going to have a huge impact on the early stages. Like, it makes it easier to hire, for one. Like, you get access to their network. YC has a hiring portal that you can post jobs on, and it goes out to their network. You very likely think you know what you're doing, but actually don't know what you're doing. Like, that was my case. I really thought I knew what I was doing, but I ultimately had no idea what I was doing. And they'll help you discover that and to realize that. You likely, if you're not from San Francisco or from the US, don't have any network, and they'll help you build a network and get to know people. I didn't even know a single person who worked at a startup when I started Artisan, like not one. That's why I couldn't find a co-founder for my network, because I just didn't know anyone in the ecosystem. And I remember I was connecting with people on LinkedIn and saying, like, who were in the current YC batch, like, hey, I'm planning on coming to SF, would love to connect.
Starting college.
Yeah.
My former life, just for context, was working on some of these international accelerators
Yeah.
and helping international companies come to Silicon Valley.
Nice.
So sort of along that same thread, and it's, resonate with what you're saying, that the main value is really being told that you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah.
Being introduced to the network of Silicon Valley,
Exactly.
just that really is the game changer here, and to be here physically.
Yeah.
So it's
I remember the first pitch deck that I made for Artisan. I said that we wanted to raise, like, I think it was like 200K at like a 2 million valuation. And I emailed like every unicorn founder that I could find, asking them for advice. And I got on calls like 8 of them. And I can't remember who it was, but one of them was like, what are you going to do with 200K? Like, that's not, you pay someone for like 6 months with their like tax and bonus and everything. I was like, okay, I didn't realize that. Because in the UK, that would be like, oh yeah, that's a fair pre-seed round, like 200K. But in the US, it's just a completely different game. And in San Francisco and Silicon Valley and New York, especially, it's a completely different game. And you just don't know that until you are told.
So what advice would you give to founders from outside the US wanting to come here, maybe aren't so lucky to get into YC?
Yeah.
Where should they start?
I guess it depends where you're from. Because if you're from a country that has the ESTA program, then you can get an ESTA pretty easily and come for 3 months and speak to people and network and build relationships. So I would, if you can get an ESTA, I would do that and come to San Francisco and just go to a bunch of things, try and meet a bunch of people, message a bunch of people. Because it's very likely that you have no idea what you're doing. Like everyone thinks they know what they're doing, but no one knows what they're doing, especially me in the early days. If you're from a country where you can't get a US visa at all, I don't even know what I would do. I guess you would probably need to get into an accelerator. Or you need to start the company locally, learn as much as you can online, get some funding, and then you can get a visa.
Let's fast forward a little bit then.
Yeah.
So then you raised your first VC round.
Yes. That was actually only 3 weeks after we started, before YC.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well.
Got very lucky.
Yeah. I mean, that's, I'm telling you.
And I didn't know a single VC either, but before we started, I did not know one person who had even done an angel check.
I mean, listen, for people hopping off the plane at LAX to Silicon Valley, you jump straight into the fire. And that's a really awesome place to land. And I think, obviously set you up for the success you have today.
Yeah.
And so once you have that check in hand, then it's time to start scaling and start giving returns. Right?
Yeah.
So what was step 2 when you needed to hire a broader team and start growing?
Yeah. So it was kind of a weird series of events. So we had the idea. I had the idea. I found a co-founder. I messaged a bunch of investors on LinkedIn. One gave me $2 million just from, without even two meetings, 2 30-minute online meetings. I thought it was fake money because I'd never seen that much money in my entire life. I saw it. I was like, what? How do we, like, I could just, like, what is this? It was insane. And then immediately hired a couple of engineers. When we raised a bigger round after YC, we raised like a proper seed. We raised like 12 million. That's when we really expanded the team. And again, I got a bit overly aggressive with the hiring, and I was like, I need to hire a general manager and I need to hire all these different things. So I was like, okay, that's not necessary. Like, you don't need those.
What made you feel like you needed to hire those roles?
I think I thought that we would scale faster if I hired all these roles and built this huge team, but it actually makes it more difficult to scale because you now have to keep, instead of 10 people, 50 people aligned with the mission. And instead of managing 10 people, you need to make sure 50 people are doing the right thing. And it actually is way more difficult to scale if you have more people than you need. Yeah.
So then what would your advice be, or sort of what would be the trigger to know when you should hire? I mean, is it wait until you're stressed out?
Yeah.
You absolutely need something to
People should be stressed. People should be like, I have too much work. Like I need someone on my team. No one should really have, if you're in the early stage of a startup, no one should have spare time. Like if you have someone in sales, they should be overwhelmed by it because they have way too many meetings. If you have someone in customer success, they should be stressed because they have so many clients. Like if you're in the early stages of a startup, managing 2 people instead of 1 is a huge burden. So everyone should be stretched as thin as possible. I know that sounds bad, but they're usually on board with it because otherwise they also split their work with someone else and they're not the sole person in an org. But people should really be owning as much as possible, and you should only hire someone you absolutely need them.
I mean, and the trade-off for employees in early stage startups is obviously, well, equity. But besides that, the excitement and the adrenaline and actually building.
A lot of people just really enjoy it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think people who look for jobs in startups are looking for that. They don't want a corporate job where they clock in, clock out, where they don't have much control or autonomy. They want that, oh shit, the house is burning down. What are we going to do? And then everyone's firefighting 24/7.
But I mean, the assumption there is that oftentimes those people are young, right?
Yeah.
Young and hungry, maybe don't have families,
Yeah.
all that. So, I mean, what have you seen in your hiring landscape of those thousands of applications that you get, hundreds of thousands,
Yeah.
right? Is it a lot of young people, or, I mean, what sort of...
It's usually young people, yeah. It's mostly young people. I think because once people are older, they typically, firstly, have a family. Secondly, if they're in tech, they're probably earning a lot of money, like more than you could ever pay them as a startup. So they tend to whittle out, and you maybe later on as you're hiring executives, you'll open up to that pool. But early on, it tends to be younger people who apply, people who want to work really hard, people who are trying to build a career and who don't really care what they're doing, but they just want to do something and build something.
Have you gotten to a point where maybe you've worked with some of your investors to find executives and find the best people to kind of help you get to that next stage?
Yeah.
How's that going?
Yeah. I think hiring executives is extremely difficult. I actually spoke to a friend about this. They're like at over $1 billion valuation now, and they're still having it where they like have tried to avoid hiring executives just because it's so difficult to do well. We've tried to hire some executives, hasn't worked out. We now have some like lower level executives, like director level. That's worked out a lot better for us. I would say if you're early stage and you're not at tens and tens of millions of ARR, I wouldn't go above director level if you're hiring, just because that's when you start getting into a whole new world of management and a whole new type of people.
That's what I was thinking
Yeah.
about, sort of company culture. Because now I'm
Yeah.
picturing, a bunch of, young people. We're building AI. We're stopping hiring humans. Like, I can
Yeah.
picture the vibe. It sounds fun. I want to join, right? Like that kind of,
Yeah.
like
Then someone comes in and goes, no,
go to bed.
Yeah.
Future vegetable.
Yeah.
That's what I'm picturing.
Yeah.
But so how have you sort of tackled this idea of company culture?
Yeah, I think culture is one of the most difficult things in a company because it defines whether people enjoy work, whether people want to work, how they work, the style of working. It really defines the success of a company. Like, do you have a culture that people are happy in, that people want to work a lot in, and that people are being productive in and not doing fake, unnecessary work? And it's something that we've learned a lot about over the past couple of years. I don't think there's any good answer. It's just like a constant iteration process. One thing is that your company will always have your worst traits, so you need to try and minimize your worst traits. Like if you're late to meetings, everyone else is going to be late to meetings because you are. So that's one thing you need to be really careful with. And they won't have your best traits. Like your best traits, you still need to. You can't tell people what to do. You need to tell people why they need to do it. So like you can't say this needs to be done immediately. Be like, we need to do this because we have this outcome that we're trying to achieve, and guide people rather than push people. Yeah.
It sounds like parenting almost. It sounds.
Yeah,
Say not as I do.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of company culture, so I'm curious, when you are working with your customers, how does having an AI agent on a team impact company culture?
I think it's interesting. I think we're in such early stages of AI employees and of AI agents that it's on the spectrum of having a software product and an AI employee. We're like here right now. Like we're not here yet. It doesn't actually feel like having a full colleague yet. I think we're going to get like here in the next year or so, and then maybe here in next like 3 or 4 years. But right now it's not at the point where it feels like you're actually interacting with another human on a team. Some people can feel threatened because they're like, oh, what is this AI that's coming and doing my things? But most people feel empowered and they're excited to have this tool that can do all this work that they hated doing before. But I think as we move further down the spectrum, further down the scale, and we get closer and closer to having like a true human like AI employee, it will be a completely different interaction because you'll be messaging them on Slack, you'll be speaking to them on video calls, they'll be talking in the all hands, they'll be asking you questions and seeking information from you. And that's what we're getting closer to, which I think is exciting and scary.
Do you sort of work with your customers to help them understand that? And maybe, I mean, some might be apprehensive to say, we don't want to fire a workforce. We don't want to stop hiring humans. Because obviously with the provocative arguments, how do you sort of like actually meet them in the middle and say, no, this is how you should integrate this and pitch it to their teams as well? Yeah,
we have a few different use cases. When it's a smaller company coming in, most of the time it's that they don't have any outbound sales reps on their team and they want to build this function and they don't have enough money to hire a human to do outbound, and they have Ava instead. That's the biggest use case, in which case they're not hiring, they would never have hired someone for the role, so they're just filling a role that wouldn't otherwise exist. The other use cases in bigger enterprises, typically they have hundreds of AEs who aren't doing outbound effectively, and they have Ava come in, do outbound on behalf of them, and then SDRs switch their time, they stop doing email outbound and they focus on calling, because you can't do that with AI. That's another big use case. But we typically don't see companies ever actually reduce the size of their team. They just either hire less going forward or hire more strategically and in more strategic roles that actually require more critical thought.
Do you actually keep a pulse on the employees that are working closely with Avon? How are they less stressed? Are they able to be more productive? What are some of those stats you guys see?
Yeah, so we have a team of CSMs who work really closely with all of our customers, and they typically, our product is used by the sales manager and the sales leader, not the actual SDRs. So they're just happy to have more leads and not have to do anything to get them.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so what other AI tools did maybe you guys use when you were starting up, or that you would advise startups that are actually worth kind of building their company around and structuring based on?
So ChatGPT, obviously, or Claude or Gemini or whatever you want to use, like they're all pretty similar. You should probably be using that for the majority of questions that you have. And rather than trying to do everything yourself, you should first run it through a model and think if it can expand on your thought or think of something better. We use Juicebox for hiring. That's a fun new one. They recently raised a Series A.
I love San Francisco because I find out about these companies often from the billboards.
I know. I actually didn't know about Juicebox until I didn't find out about them. I saw their billboard. I was like, that's dumb. I didn't know what the company does still. Yeah. And then I heard about them like a few weeks later in like some articles. I was like, oh, that's the one I saw the billboard for.
Those billboards are majorly affected.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're stuck in traffic so much.
Yeah. You're just like, oh, there we go. Yeah. Not that many products have made it into my core workflow yet. I think a lot of them are obviously Claude Code if you're doing engineering, or Cursor or whatever you want to use. But most functions of the business don't have a flagship leader yet. And I think that's what we're getting towards.
Yeah, I think we've seen a lot of that coming up in the last year too, even Startup Battlefield, right? It's really these verticalized AI agents and whatnot. But I'm curious, so what, if you were going to do it all over again and maybe build a little leaner, you were talking about hired too much or too fast, what would you sort of see as sort of the bare bones team to start on your company, and where could AI plug in maybe? Yeah,
so you need to have someone on the team or multiple people on the team who can build the products all the way. Like they need to have front end, back end, and AI engineering skills, or at least a combination of them plus AI should be able to do it. That's the most important thing. Like you need to have someone who, I see so many companies who are building and they don't have anyone who can actually build the products on the founding team, and it's impossible then to actually get anything done. That's why YC doesn't really let in companies that don't have a technical co-founder. So that's number one. Number two, you either need to be building a product that you don't need to sell, or you need someone who's able to sell. And what I mean is like a product that's a dev tool. You don't really need to be able to sell it, because engineers just like find things and they they have their communities, and they like, if you're building a dev tool, you don't need to be great at marketing. Well, you do to scale really far, but initially you don't need to be great at marketing. You don't need to be great at sales. You need to build an amazing product. But if you're building in the go-to-market space, you need to be good at go-to-market. Otherwise, they're not going to take you seriously. So I think it's very dependent on what you're building and the sector and industry you're building in. But someone who can build, and if necessary, someone who can sell.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And you don't actually need anything else. Like you don't need someone to do. You don't need to hire anyone for marketing. You don't need to hire customer support. You can do it all yourself in a team of 2 or 3.
But so, I mean, you are non-technical, as you said. But are the marketing campaigns and all of these sort of like provocative? Let's go make people talk about us. Was that all from you?
Yeah. That's mostly me. So that's what I focus on everything. But right now I'm the only marketing person on the team.
Really?
Unfortunately,
wow. Yeah. I mean, not unfortunately. Like I said, I think it's one of the best marketing campaigns we've seen in a long time.
Yeah, we're trying to hire someone for growth now aggressively. Yeah, we had someone doing growth kind of as part of their role before, but we've never had someone full-time dedicated only growth.
So all these wild ideas came from you, because I remember seeing...
And the team have had a lot of ideas as well, not just me. But
of course. Yeah. Great team. But I remember seeing you had like an April Fool's thing or something where you were going to step down as CEO, and it was your AI version.
That was me and the chief of staff that I had at the time that we came up with that, and then we did a shoot day. It actually wasn't an AI video. It was a short video. We rented this house in LA and we filmed the ad. It was actually really fun.
Well, it has been very both entertaining, but also inspiring and hopeful to see the growth that you guys have had. And I just wish you guys a lot of luck going forward. And
thank you.
Yeah, and shout out to anyone who wants to be hired for Artisan.
Yeah, we're hiring humans. Yeah,
humans for what roles?
For product designers, engineers, AI engineers, customer success, sales, everything. Okay. Yeah.
So to wrap up, I'd love to ask you, what is the best team building advice you've ever received?
I would say the most important thing is not to just fill a role because you think you need it, and never to hire someone that you don't think is amazing, especially in the early days. If you lower the bar, the bar is permanently lowered, and every single person you hire after that will be worse than they otherwise would have been. Because great people want to work with great people. If you hire someone who's not amazing but is good, they're not going to be bad enough for you to fire them, so they're not going to be good enough to be excellent. So you should never lower the bar in the early days.
Interesting.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for joining
sure.
us.
Thanks for
It's been
having me.
a pleasure. Build Mode is a TechCrunch podcast. Each episode is produced and edited by Maggie Nye and hosted by me, Isabelle Johannessen. Our art and design is also by Maggie Nye. A big thanks to Morgan Little, who leads our audience development, the Foundry and Cheddar video teams, and most of all to you, the builders, and everyone else in the wider startup community. We'll see you back here next time.